A few years ago, man, I was having a conversation with my pops, man. We were just sitting, chopping it up. You know what I mean? And he once said, what do you do when you have a problem in front of you that you can't face? Do you sit there and try to solve it, or what do you do? And I was thinking, I was like, nah, I'm gonna stay there. I was like, what if you can't figure it out? What do you do then? I was like, nah, I'm gonna stay there and try to figure it out. He was like, nah. What you gotta focus on sometimes is removing yourself from the problem, going to the next one. And before you know it, more than likely that problem is either gonna be solved within time. And it dawned on me that a lot of times we get so stuck up within particular situations because we're not focusing on trying to progress because we're stalling ourselves out. Imagine this, right? Every problem that you face in your past, sometimes the solution didn't come face front at you. And what you did was you allowed time to progress. By the time you realized it, problem solved itself. I want to open up within that because I didn't do the car conversations, but it gave me an opportunity just to give you guys some game. You know what I'm saying? Even though that was a cluttered message, it still presents an opportunity for you to understand not every problem needs to be solved right then and there. Sometimes you're able to focus on identifying a problem, coming back to it, and before you know it, you probably already made the natural change that was needed for you to see real growth. Man, what's going on? It's day 2 of the hard 75. We're up to 10%. We're gonna be emphasizing on the pull day. Like usual, I'll start with my general warm up for 15 minutes. We're gonna have fun, man. We got a lot of game in the spirit today. So starting off this workout, man, I always start my workouts with a form of bodyweight movement, right? So we started off with some bodyweight pull-ups just to assess mind-muscle connection, and then from there, I'm gonna get into my workout. I'm gonna do 3 sets here. We're gonna try these rock climbing ones too, though. I ain't gonna lie to you. You gotta understand, like, working out is like cooking. Before you actually cook your food, man, you gotta prep your body. You know what I mean? So as we're working out, we're focusing on being intentional with the correct mechanics, right? A general warm-up, a dynamic warm-up, and then from there, we assess with the bodyweight movement, and then we go right into some isolation, and then we go right into it. So I'm focusing on about a good 12 here, really emphasizing driving that elbow to the hip and keeping my shoulder down for that lat and then that activation. You don't want to go right into your meal, man, with your food, for sure. You don't want to go right into your meal where, your food's half cooked. Same concept. You don't want to go into your workout half prepared. So be intentional, you know what I mean? And that's just what I focus on. Corrective exercise, building the body up, and then getting to those compound movements. So as I'm getting into my workout now, we're starting off with some single arm lat pull downs. Every workout, man, it doesn't have to be super aggressive. When you're focusing on strategy and optimization, what are you trying to get out of it? Training to a failure is just optimal. And it's not always, because everybody's endurance is different. So if you try to exert to a certain level, your recovery time and muscle growth is actually going to be hindered because you're overtraining. And that is a real concept, and that's how injuries occur. Right now, I worked up to 3 to 4 or even 5 sets. I focus on different styles of training, as I talked about in other videos. As I continue to focus on my strength increasing, I'm seeing a big indication of my muscle, right? And that's the biggest thing that you want to take away from anything that you do. You don't have to be doing something at the gym. And if your goal is to focus on muscle endurance and hypertrophy, being intentional is everything. And this is something I live by. You want to exaggerate the movement, not where you're being goofy with it, but exaggerating the movement where you're focusing on being really intentional. Because as you continue to progress within that weight, naturally, that range of motion is going to become restricted. If you're focusing on moderate, where you're focusing on being controlled, and you exaggerate pulling all the way through from top to bottom, you'll feel a world of a difference. And then naturally, over time, as you get stronger, and you get to that threshold where you feel like you want to fatigue or your mechanics feel like it's going to compromise, now you're being a lot more intentional. And that's just something, I preach. I don't have to go super crazy and heavy. At the end of the day, it all comes down to your repetitiveness. How often are you doing the mechanics? How often are you focused on being intentional? And if you're doing what I'm telling you to do, that contraction is going to be a world of a difference. You know, it's money, man. Everything's up for grabs. You know, every time you be intentional, every time you focus on the direction where you're trying to take yourself, each and every second is a dollar you can grab. You know, and a lot of times, man, we associate time with money, but not the value within ourselves that we have. And so if you want to get to it, it's not going to happen overnight. Just like being rich overnight, it's not going to happen. But each and every time you cash in, trust me, that value going to continue to increase. You know, and the only thing about coming to a commercial gym, you know, everything got to be on the fly. And, you know, especially as a trainer, I know what it's like to work, you know, within other guests, whether it be a dumbbell or a particular device of mine, and not taking too long on it. But I'm very courteous when it comes to that, just because, like, I don't really care for people to walk through the video or for people to hop in. So that's how that goes. You know, as I'm wrapping it up, you know, it was a quick one. I wanted to let you guys know, like, you don't got to focus on making everything hella long. You know, everything is strategic. Even though it was a quick one, you know, the most important part, like I talked about, man, is nutrition. I'm feeling pretty light, so I want to make sure when I go to the crib, man, I eat. Like I always say, man, make the change, be the change, maximize your life through fitness, be your desire. My dogs, you know, if y'all stay to the end, I appreciate you sincerely. You know, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if you guys have got any questions or comments in regards to, like, my training style, challenge me. And I'd love to be able to just engage with you guys, and, you know, let's continue to grow the channel. Like I always say, be the change. Let's keep getting after it.